Hello and welcome to Leeroy Gaming, where today we continue our deep dive series of videos for Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous. Now, today we are going to be looking at the Arcanist Exploit features. Now, this is not only useful for the Arcanist main class, but also for the Arcane Enforcer subclass of the Slayer class. So, if you are choosing to do either one of those classes, this is going to be very interesting for you, as this is a major feature of this class or these classes. Do note my other videos going in depth on them. They reference this video as well. But here we are just looking at the exploits in depth. Now, this video is going to be long, as all my other videos are, as we're going to go one by one and read over and look at the features of each of the exploits and advanced exploits. So do take advantage of the timestamps in the description below to jump around as you see fit. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to start with Acid Jet. So the Arcanist can unleash a jet of acid by expending 1 point from an arcane reservoir and making a ranged touch attack against any one target in close range. If the attack hits, it deals 1d6 points of acid damage plus the Arcanist Charisma modifier, plus an additional 1d6 points of acid damage for every 2 levels beyond first. Maxes out at 10d6 at 19th level. The target is also sickened for 1d4 rounds, and it can attempt a fortitude saving throw to negate the sickened condition. Option number 2, Arcane Barrier. As a swift action, Arcanist can expend, or Slayer, Arcane Enforcer rather, can expend 1 point from Arcane Reservoir to create a barrier of magic that protects her from harm. Barrier grants the Arcanist a number of temporary hit points equal to her Arcanist or Arcane Enforcer level, plus Charisma modifier, and lasts for 1 minute per Arcanist level or until all temporary hit points have been lost. Each additional time per day the Arcanist uses the ability, number of Arcane Reservoir points she must spend to activate it is increased by 1, up to a maximum of 3. So there's a diminishing rate of returns on it. Temporary hit points from the ability do not stack with themselves, but additional uses cause the total number of temporary hit points and the duration to reset. Next, we got Armored Mask. So, by expending 1 point from her Arcane Reservoir as a standard action, the Arcanist grants herself an effective illusion of armor. She grants benefits of Mage Armor spell of a caster level that's equal to her Arcanist level. The Arcanist already has Mage Armor active. She instead gains the benefits of Shield of Faith spell with a caster level equal to her Arcanist level. Next, we got Dimensional Slide. Arcanist can expend 1 point from Arcane Reservoir to create a dimensional crack that she can step through to reach another location. Abilities use the move action, allowing her to move to any location in close range she can see. So it's like a close range dimensional door for one person. Next is Energy Shield. So the Arcanist can protect herself from energy damage as a standard action by expending 1 point from Arcane Reservoir. She must pick one energy type and gain resistance 10 against the energy type for 1 minute per Arcanist level. Now remember, that resist 10 basically means the first 10 damage of that type, whatever you pick, gets negated every time you take damage of that type. The protection increases by 5 for every 5 levels the Arcanist possesses, up to a maximum of 30 at level 20. Again, for both the Arcane Enforcer as well as the Arcanist. Next, we have Flame Arc. The Arcanist can unleash an arc of flame by expending 1 point from her Arcane Reservoir. This creates a 30-foot line of flame, deals 1d6 points of fire damage, plus the Arcanist Charisma modifier, plus an additional 1d6 points of fire damage every 2 levels beyond first. So it's going to cap out at 10d6 at 19th level, and this is to each target in the line. Creatures in the area of effect may attempt a reflex save throw to half the damage. Next, we got Force Strike. Arcanist can unleash a blast of force by expending 1 point from her Arcane Reservoir. This attack automatically strikes one target within 30 feet as magic missile and deals 1d4 points of force damage, plus 1 point of damage per Arcanist level. Spells and effects that negate magic missile also negate this effect. Next, you have Ice Missile. Arcanist can unleash a freezing projectile by expending 1 point from her Arcane Reservoir and making a ranged touch attack against any one target within 30 feet. If it hits, it deals 1d6 points of cold damage, plus the Arcanist Charisma modifier, plus an additional 1d6 points of cold damage for every 2 levels beyond first. Again, maxes 10d6 at 19th level. Now, in addition, target is going to be staggered for a round, unless it makes a Fortitude saving throw, in which case that would negate the staggered condition. Next, we got Lightning Lance. The Arcanist can unleash a Lance of Lightning by expending 1 point from her Arcane Reservoir and making a ranged touch attack against any one target within 30 feet. If the attack hits, it deals 1d6 points of electricity damage plus the Arcanist Charisma modifier plus 1d6 points of electricity damage for every 2 levels beyond first. Again, it's going to max out at 10d6 at 19th level. Target's vision is also impaired. It's going to cause the target to treat all creatures as if they had a 20% concealment for 1 round. It can attempt a Fortitude saving throw, though, to negate that impaired vision. Next, you got Potent Magic. Whenever an Arcanist expends 1 point from an Arcane Reservoir to increase the caster level of a spell, the caster's level increases by 2 instead of 1. So this is passive. Nice little passive buff. Whenever she expends 1 point from Arcane Reservoir to increase the spell's DC, difficulty check, it increases by 2 instead of 1 as well. Next, we get Shadow Veil. By expending 1 point of her Arcane Reservoir, an Arcanist can pull a veil of shadow around her, making her more difficult to spot and strike. So the Arcanist gains concealment, so 20% mischance, and a +5 bonus on stealth checks. And it's going to last for a number of rounds equals to 1 plus the Arcanist Charisma bonus. Next, you got Sonic Blast. Arcanist can loose a deafening blast of sonic energy by expending 1 point from her Arcane Reservoir and succeeding at a ranged touch attack against any one target within 30 feet. The blast deals an amount of sonic damage equal to 1d6 plus the Arcanist Charisma modifier, plus an additional 1d6 points of sonic damage for every 2 levels beyond first. Again, maxes out 10d6 at 19th level, and target can attempt Fortitude save to half the damage. Next, another passive buff, Spell Resistance. Arcanist grants herself spell resistance for a number of rounds equal to her Charisma modifier, minimum of 1, as a standard action to expend 1 point from Arcane Reservoir. Spell resistance equal to 6 plus her Arcanist level. So this is a kind of a weaker spell resistance. A lot of times I've seen like 11, and I think I've seen as high as 13, maybe even higher potentially. So it is a spell resistance, but it's not quite as powerful as some of the other ones I've seen. Swift Consume. The Arcanist can use the Consume spell class feature or the Consume magic item exploit as swift actions instead of move actions. So increases the efficiency of those features. Wooden Flesh is next as the final kind of basic exploit. The Arcanist infuses herself the toughness of the plant life that she studies. Arcanist can spend 1 point from her Arcane Reservoir to gain +2 natural armor bonus and damage resistance that is bypassed by slashing, equaling to her Charisma modifier, minimum 1, for 1 minute for Arcanist level. While this ability is in effect, she counts as both her original creature type and a plant creature for the purpose of abilities and spells. Now we're going to take a look at some of the ones that have prerequisites, are going to be advanced greater exploits. The first one is Burning Flame. It requires that you have Flame Arc, first, and a greater exploit feature. Exploit works as the Flame Arc exploit that we looked at earlier, but the Arcanist needs to expend 2 points from her Arcane Reservoir instead of 1. If she does, her target catches on fire if it fails its saving throw. Until the fire is extinguished, the target takes 3d6 points of fire damage at the start of each turn. Target can attempt a reflex every round to extinguish the flames. So if they have a bad reflex modifier, this can hurt a lot for a long time. Next is Dancing Electricity, and this is going to require Lightning Lance first and a greater exploits. Exploit works just like the Lightning Lance exploit. Now it's going to need 2 points of Arcane Reservoir to use. Now, if you do, all creatures adjacent to the target take an amount of damage equal to half the amount of electric damage rolled. Adjacent creatures can attempt to reflex save throw to half that damage. Whether or not the target makes its saving throw has no effect on adjacent targets. Arcanist Exploit must have the Lightning exploit to be selected. Okay. Next, greater spell resistance. So this is what we were talking about. That initial spell resistance, not so great, but here you can take this one. It does require you to take spell resistance first. And this is going to basically up that spell resistance to 11 plus the Arcanist level. Next, you got Hellfire Ray. Requires the greater exploit feature and Flame Arc. It works the same as Flame Arc. Now again, you're going to use 2 points of Arcanist Reservoir to utilize this. If you do, half of the damage she deals is fire, and the other half results directly from an unholy power that is not subject to fire resistance. That's really big because fire resistance is very common, especially in this game where you have demons that are going to have fire resistances. Good creatures that take damage from a Hellfire Ray must succeed at a will saving throw or be sickened for 1d4 rounds. Obviously also good if you're evil and fighting good creatures. Holy Water Jet. This requires you to be an angel or an Azada. I'm assuming this means the mythic paths in this game, because otherwise I don't see any way to start as an angel or an Azada. But let's say you meet those prerequisites. The Arcanist can unleash a jet of holy water by expending 1 point from the Arcane Reservoir. Creatures, this creates a 30-foot line, water that deals damage equal to 1d8 points of damage plus the Arcanist Charisma modifier, plus an additional 1d8 points of damage for every 2 levels beyond first, to a total of 10d8 at 19th. To each target in a line that would normally take damage from holy water, creatures in the area of effect can attempt a reflex saving throw to half the damage. So there are other non-Azada, non-angel versions of this that are exactly the same that we looked at earlier. The difference there, for reference, is they were doing 1d6 scaling damage instead of 1d8. So their max was 10d6. This is 10d8. So it has the potential to do basically up to 20 more damage. Next, we have Icy Tomb. Requires Ice Missile to be taken previously and have the greater exploit feature. The exploit works as the Ice Missile exploit, but again needs 2 points to be used now. If you use 2, the target is coded in rhyme if it fails its saving throw. As long as the ice remains 1 minute per level, the target is entangled and takes 1 point of dexterity damage at the start of each of its turns. The target tries to break free from the ice every round by making a strength check with DC equal to 10 plus the Arcanist Charm modifier. If the target takes fire damage, the ice melts and effect ends. The Arcanist must have the Ice Missile Arcanist Exploit to use. Now, notice this is a strength check. That's pretty uncommon in this game. So you can not only can you cast this on casters, but cast it on a rogue that'll likely have low strength and probably a bunch of dex. So there's the fact that it's not a fortitude, it's not a will save, it's not a reflex save, it's a very particular strength check and very rare. So as long as you're not, tossing this on fighters or barbarians, etc., this could be very, very good. All right, and then finally, the last option is Lingering Acid. It requires Acid Jet as well as the greater exploit. Like the other upgrades, it's going to require 2 Arcane Reservoir points to use. If you do, the target takes additional damage on the following rounds if it fails its saving throw. Target takes 1d6 points of acid damage on the following round for every 2d6 points of acid damage dealt by the initial attack. On subsequent rounds, the target continues to take 1d6 points of acid damage for every 2d6 points of acid damage dealt on previous rounds. The damage continues until the amount of acid damage dealt on the previous round by this effect is 1d6. For example, a 9th level Arcanist would deal 5d6 points of acid damage plus the Arcanist Charisma modifier, 2d6 points of acid damage on the following round, and 1d6 points of acid damage on the third and final round. So it deteriorates over time. So this is a nice little burst of damage for sure. So that is the final Lingering Acid. Again, final Arcanist Exploit. As mentioned, this is not only good for the Arcanist, but also for the Arcane Enforcer, which is a subclass of Slayer. Hope you guys found this video helpful. Again, if you do like this content, make sure to like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell to see my other content when it pops up. And with that being said, guys, I will go ahead and see you guys next time.